Thank you for finding the NSE podcast on YouTube. To find links for our online hospitality security training, check out the video description below. Enjoy the Nightlife Security Podcast.
Hey there, this is Bobby Mack from Planet Platypus Radio on planetplatypus.com, and you're listening to the Nightclub Security Podcast.
Welcome to the Nightclub Security Podcast, a professional resource for the nightclub security industry. Whether you're a nightclub bouncer, guard, owner, or operator, this is the podcast for you. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody. You're listening to the Nightclub Security Podcast. This is Manny Marquez. I am here with nightclub industry expert Robert C. Smith. We're coming to you live from downtown LA from the lovely Bonaventure Hotel. Robert, how are we doing today?
Fantastic, man. I love this hotel.
Yeah, this is our actually our second time staying here. Is kind of our home away from home when we're in LA. We're actually up in LA the first part of this week. We're doing a little bit of training. We're doing some of the California PSO training at the Akbar in, is it Silver Lake?
Yep, the community is Silver Lake in Los Angeles on the corner of Fountain and West Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, so we've found a great partner in Jeff Wiley there at the Akbar. He's allowed us to use his club for the next 3 days, and we're going to be doing some training there. And actually, if you get a chance to visit the Akbar, if you ever come down to LA, it's actually a cool little spot.
There are so many of those cool spots. I just can't believe it. From, a couple of years ago when I did some training for the 933 group, the Little Cave, I can't remember a couple of other venues, but there's so many cool small spots, and this is one of them.
That's the cool thing about LA is there's such an entertainment nightclub culture in this town, and you can find these little hidden gems all across the city and places you wouldn't even expect to look. You can find some really neat places that are just kind of tucked out of the way. And
what do you think about what Jeff told us today about what's going on tonight with open a kind of open mic comedy session?
Oh, yeah. He was describing that they've been doing an open mic comedy show for the last 9 years, I think is what he said. And they get some big names like Wanda Sykes and Margaret Cho that'll come in, and they use it as a practice ground for their material. And it's a room that's small enough to where it's not intimidating, and it's out of the way to where they can work out their material. And
I mean, it's really a weird room only because it's like as big as imagine an Embassy Suites master suite, and that's how big it is. I mean, it's 20 by 20, and really close and unique for the performer.
Like an intimate setting, and I could only imagine what those venues would be like, or that venue would be like if you have a big name in there. What sort of energy that would bring to the room. And yeah, it's been a really good trip. We've got a great group of guys. I'm always impressed with when we come do these in-person trainings and the people that you meet. And just the guys from different states, different walks of life, different professions, different aspirations. You get to know a little bit about them, and it's always, to me, that's always the fun part about these trainings.
And what's also enjoyable is, and you mentioned it yesterday, that the manager from Exposed, the daytime manager from Exposed Gentlemen's Club in Canoga Park.
Yeah, Ashley.
She's not managed a venue like this before. She's done some other things in management, but not this. And it doesn't seem like she's fairly new to the industry. It seems like she's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, I think there's a certain type of person that's drawn to this industry, and especially with the profession of management, I think we're all cut from the same jib. So
we got representatives from Townhouse in Venice Beach. That's a really unique venue. I think it's one of the oldest liquor licenses in the state. I think
it actually is the oldest liquor license in LA.
Like 1920. We got Harvard and Stone. La Descarga from both of those venues in LA, Porvu in the Hollywood area. I already mentioned Exposed. We got Deja Vu representing again. Another time Deja Vu comes through. Don Krantz, the area manager, sending people in. And a good number of guys from Houston's hospitality group. Yeah,
so if you're listening to this and you're in the LA area, we do post our regular in-person events, and you can find those on our website. Well, I'm sure if you listen to us, we'll mention it on the podcast. So, Robert, we got some news this week.
Well, and it brings up a couple of points, and I'm sure we could do a podcast on this point alone. And it's one of the questions that usually comes up, and I'm sure it'll come up at this training session, but it's about off-duty police officers. And the news comes out of the South, not Florida this time, folks, but Louisiana out of Baton Rouge.
That's so close to Florida. We almost had it 4 weeks in a row.
4 weeks in a row.
A Florida story, but this is actually out of Louisiana.
This off-duty cop, a rookie, he's in a bar having a good time. He's in Baton Rouge, and he's gets in a little argument. Once he gets a little sauced, gets in an argument, the bouncer steps in to separate him from the other person. And as the bouncer's getting ready to walk him out, this off-duty cop identifies himself as an off-duty cop, pulls his credentials out. The guard kind of backs off and says, "Hey, I don't want any problems, but it's time to go." Whack! The off-duty cop punches the bouncer in the nose or in the face, fracturing, breaking his jaw. Police are called by the other employees. This rookie cop is eventually arrested. He's put in jail, subsequently released on bail. The guard ends up with a fractured jaw in the hospital, wired shut, and he's out. But it brought up an interesting point that I thought about, Manny, and you've had it when you were manager. Most of my venues have asked me something about this, is how do you deal with off-duty cops? When they're in line, when they're rude, when they're out of place, when they're in your bar and they're intoxicated and causing trouble.
Actually, Robert, this story reminds me of a time when I was bartending back in Fresno. We actually had the Policemen's Olympics in Fresno.
Oh, man, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I've been to them in Arizona and L.A.
Yeah, this was, I think, a congregation of around 4,000 police officers in the city for, I think, 4 or 5 days. They had their events, and then, of course, there was some time to party. And in one night, if I remember correctly, this is back in the late 90s, we had almost 17 arrests in one night. And guess what?
What?
They were all police officers.
It's not unusual, and I want to let the listeners know, spread this word, discuss it, whether you think you have a great relationship with the cops or not. When they're off duty, they are citizens, period, end of sentence. It doesn't matter if you're in D.C., it doesn't matter if you're in San Diego or Anchorage or Tampa. When these cops are off duty coming into your place to have a drink or 10, they're normal people. If they get out of line, if they get rude, you can ask them to leave. If you're worried about it, get your manager involved. And if push comes to shove, as was done with one of my clients in San Diego, they had 3 cops in there from out of town. They asked the cops to leave, and the cops started causing trouble. They backed off. Said, "All right, no, don't worry about it. Calm down." The manager went outside, called 911. Within about 3 minutes, there were 2 officers, a sergeant and a lieutenant there, to go talk to these alleged off-duty officers from another town. Well, they were cops. They were off-duty. And the cops got there quick to handle the problem for the bouncers, for the manager, for the club. They escorted them out. They notified their own command back on their own, but they handled it internally, cop to cop. And sometimes that may be your best course of action. Now, this guy obviously went to jail, and I applaud the guard and the manager for standing up to this. Not that I want cops to go to jail. I'm a former cop, 20 years with San Diego PD, but they need to be held to a higher standard, and this is exactly what we don't want them doing.
So I think that there's some interesting nuances when it comes to dealing with a law enforcement individual while they're off duty and there's alcohol involved. I think it's a delicate situation because, of course, you're trying to do the PR thing. You're trying to be correct in your dealings with them.
Well, and
you're trying to offer up a little bit more of a level of respect because they are a law official. But I think on the other side of the coin is that individual probably has an inflated sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Is that safe to say, Robert? You're
especially when they get intoxicated, that has to come out because they just sometimes try to throw it around. But one of the things you didn't say, they're also the regulators, and it may not be this cop that is your direct beat officer or deputy in charge, but he is a cop and he's a regulator of the bar and nightclub industry. And now he's in your bar causing trouble. I know you're worried. God, if we call the police on him and have him arrested, if we throw him out, if we put our hands on him, we can get in trouble. He'll come back by. He'll hold it against us. He'll come retaliate. Horse crap. You do what you need to do.
Well, I think what most individuals will find if they're ever in this situation, if you do have a law enforcement individual in your place, you do call the police department to help you deal with this. That individual who's causing trouble is probably going to be in quite a bit of amount of trouble.
And it may not be trouble, but they will certainly be under the microscope for that event and regarding retaliation for any event after that that looks suspect on what they do, especially if it is retaliation.
So operators shouldn't be afraid of calling the police to help you deal with these situations.
No, and one of the things I know we're going to podcast on this is being proactive with law enforcement. It's one of the first large seminars I ever gave for the ED show, the Gentleman's Club show. It's how to get along with law enforcement. And a quick point, if you make contact with sergeants that work daytime and nighttime, if they know who you are as a manager, then you have a problem with some young officer in your venue, you can email or text this sergeant who's working. All of a sudden, the sergeant shows up with another officer. They handle this on the down low. Now, I understand you might want it handled differently. Okay. They may not want to handle it that way. The bottom line is the problem is handled. This officer doesn't pull out his hidden gun, his off-duty weapon. He doesn't punch a bouncer, break his jaw, and the problem is handled. And that's what you really want at the end of the day.
All right. So actually, I just want to touch back on the actual original story. So at the point where the police officer identified himself, there wasn't much time between that and the actual violent incident.
No, from all accounts, both news, television news, printed news reports, there was almost no time. The guard allegedly took a step back, put his hands up as if, hey, I don't want any problems, and bam, he was punched.
Can I ask you this, Robert? Does the bouncer have a criminal or a civil case against?
Absolutely. He may not have a case against the police department, but he has one against that individual, that off-duty police officer.
Do you think there would be a potential for a lawyer to pursue something against the city?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just curious.
He's off-duty. He's not in any capacity. He's not in any shape, way, or form connected to the department other than an off-duty cop. And what he did was not a part of any policy, procedure, guideline they have. He's basically out there on his own, what they call, off the ranch or rogue. And he identified himself just to get some curry some favor rather, and he blew up. He blew it.
What would be the disciplinary action internally for a police department?
Well, think about it. He's been arrested and will probably end up pleading guilty to simple assault. Can you imagine being a police officer 6 years from now, this officer 6 years from now, if he's allowed to stay on the force? My thought on this, he'll be handled criminally in the court system, whether he pleads guilty to assault, and then he'll be terminated. He's been on the force less than a year. He was 7 months out of the academy. I think he'll be terminated. That's just my opinion. And maybe rightfully so. But can you imagine if he was allowed to stay on the department, and 6 years from now, he has a use of force complaint against him? They can go back and bring this up. Didn't you beat up someone at a bar and you were allowed to stay on, and now the police department knows he's got a propensity for either alcohol and violence? None of it may be true, but you can certainly put the inference that this officer was trouble before. You accepted it. You let him stay in your department.
Like you had said previously, we probably will do a full episode with law enforcement and how do you handle that in respects to nightclub security. One more question, though. Was this a mistake because the cop was young and inexperienced?
I think so. But add in there, because this is true with all of these events regarding typical assaults, any sort of assault in a bar, throw in alcohol. If he's sober at a restaurant with a friend and he does something, he's asked to leave, he'd probably get up and leave and not want to identify himself. Don't let anyone know I'm a cop. Let me get out of here because I screwed up. But now mix in alcohol. Now he doesn't have the right mindset, and he goes and identifies himself as a cop after he does something stupid, thinking he can get out of it, and he got caught.
So we'll have, if you guys want to take a look at the actual news piece, there's a video clip that goes with it, actually out of the local, I think, ABC affiliate. We'll put a link to that on our show notes. Today's show is actually something a little bit different than what we normally do. Wanted to handle, I guess, a softer topic, something a little bit more in regards to the guest. So we're going to talk about security customer service tips, and we're calling this 5 and 5. And basically what Robert and I are going to do is we're going to talk about our top 5 favorite customer service tips, little hints, tricks, tips on things that you can do while you're working that will enhance the guest experience, make it more enjoyable, and make you that shining star and really add to the bottom line of as far as customer service.
And this is going to be the conversation. Notice how Manny just prefaced what we're going to give you our customer service tips to make this a soft and cuddly and lovely, warm atmosphere for the guest. My view is we're going to give you some tips to prevent fights, to prevent problems, to limit your liability, lower the chance of you getting hurt or injured, and keep your venue safer. And that's my security side, and that's his general manager customer service side. And that's what we wanted to bring to this podcast.
So if you're interested in hearing those tips, I'd like to invite you to stick around. We're going to take a short break, but when we come right back, we'll get on with the show. Stay tuned. Thank you for joining us on our weekly podcast. Please like us on Facebook at Nightclub Security Consultants. All right, then, welcome back. Robert, as we said before we took a break, today's show is a little bit of a softer topic. When I say soft, because we've been talking about some very serious issues. In our first couple shows, we dealt with limiting liability.
Violent incidents,
how to document. So we've really handled some pretty job-specific, very important topics in regards to nightclub security. This one, we talked about doing something a little bit off the course we were going and more towards customer service. And I think the important part about customer service in regards to the position of a security guard or a bouncer is oftentimes we as bouncers or managers, we set the tone, we set the feeling for the night. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation, Robert, where and I've been through this multiple times, where I've been working and things just feel tense. And I don't know if anyone out there has been in an experience where they've been in a bar, but it just did not feel right. There was a bad vibe going on in the place.
And multiple times I've had people tell me that, hey, when I'm working, sometimes I just walk in and I'm starting my shift and I just look at the crowd and it's 10 o'clock and I'm coming on because I'm on until 3. And I just kind of get a vibe that, wow, something's going to go off tonight. And my next question is, what did you do about it? Because what do most people do when they get that vibe, Manny?
They probably feed the same energy into the vibe.
They feel negative. They feel crappy. They put out that same sort of vibe, just looking, knowing something's coming. And oftentimes don't address it proactively to change the mood.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting dynamic. And I think this is where we come from a customer service standpoint, is the employees are basically the heartbeat of any establishment, any restaurant, any bar, any nightclub. And depending on the mood and the attitude of the employees, that often reflects onto the guest. As a manager, one of the training points that I would give is you have to treat this like a mirror. And whatever you have on one side of the mirror is what you're going to get on the other. So if you have bad attitudes, if you have a negative feeling or the things that you're doing are rude, you should expect that back.
And it's funny, I use that same mirror type effect when I am giving a class. And anyone listening that's been to one of my classes, I'll ask people on day 2, maybe sometimes on day 1, but typically day 2 of a 3-day or a 2-day course, who worked last night? And I'll look at the hands, I'll see who worked. That tells me immediately who might be short today, who might not have any energy, who might be tired, who might be falling asleep. And because I know that ahead of time, I'll come up with a little bit more energy and I'll ask them certain things to be involved. They don't fall asleep. They don't get angry. They're not upset about being there. They forget about being tired on their night before because I changed the energy.
So is why we're here on today's show is to talk about a few of our favorite tips, and we're calling this 5 and 5. So what we're going to do is go back and forth, and I'm going to give you a tip, and Robert, you're gonna name off a tip. We'll just go back and forth, and at the end of the show, hopefully you have a tool belt full of some tricks and some things that you can implement that'll help you do your job better and just be better at customer service.
And I think it's important to also say that just like in my classes, we're not saying that you should do every one of these because some won't fit. Some just won't fit your employees. They won't fit your style, and we get that. What we want to do is give you some possible extra tools to draw on rather than what you've been doing, which may be nothing, maybe things you haven't thought about, and that's what we want to do.
All right. Do you want to start, Robert?
I'll start.
What's at your top of your list?
Well, and are we going to go in any certain order? Is this the most important or the least important? I'd like to just throw them out.
I think you freeform.
when I do this kind of thing and I have to write lists and I've written articles, I usually start at the door. So at the door, and there's lots of things you can do. And I talk to many guys. I enjoyed talking to Christian today from where's Christian from? He works at La Descarga in L.A. And he's an older guy. He said he's a child. He's from the 80s, like he's really old. Thanks, dude.
He didn't look that old.
No, but what is he, 35 from the 80s? But he was really passionate about how he handled his door. He was passionate about what he did and what he said at the door. And I wrote this list before I even met Christian. But one of my things at the door for customer service is greet the guest. Don't just look at their ID. Don't sit on a stool. Don't be a bump on a log. Have some sort of energy. And if you need a rubber mat to stand on so you can stand and be more comfortable, get it. But when you greet those guests, say hi. How you doing? Where are you coming from? Hey, that's a nice outfit. Hey, those are some good-looking dogs you're wearing. If you know them, make conversation. You don't have to.
Have you been looking at my list?
No, but the reason I do it will be different than yours, because the reason I do it, I want to gauge their attitude. Bad attitude at the door, it's just going to be worse inside. Are they angry? When I was a cop and someone would say, when I walked up to the door to their window and said, "Excuse me, sir, could I see your license and registration, please?" And they went, "Oh, shit, why are you stopping me? This is bull." And I'd stop right there. I'd freeze it. I'd change the whole stop and say, "Excuse me, are you okay? Are you having a bad day? Because I don't know that we've met."
Well, you've pulled them over. Of course they're having a bad day.
Well, and it's going to get worse if their attitude stays that way. Maybe I need to calm this moment down, and that's what this door guard should be doing. So 2 people come up. They're having a good time already. They're going to have a better time if you're friendly and outgoing. You get to learn facial expressions. You get to learn their body language. And one of the worst things you can have is fear at the door. Remember, this guest, and it's one of the most unique things I've ever seen happen, this guest doesn't know if it's your second day on the job or you've been doing it 22 years. The only reason they know that this is your third night at the door is when you say, "Oh, I'm new here. This is my third night at the door." Now they think you're a doof. You're not. You're doing what you're supposed to do, and you're doing it right. Be friendly, be outgoing, and be engaging with every single customer you can.
All right, so your tip, I'm going to go ahead and coincide a tip that I have is very similar. Believe it or not, Robert, one of my favorite things to do when I'm managing is I love to relieve the door staff and check IDs.
I think it's one of the best places to work.
And the reason why I like it is because it's the easiest, most opportunity-wide point in the evening to where I can make contact with the guest. And I have a few tricks that I do while I am IDing. So every time you get an ID, there's a process that probably most guys go through, or most door guys go through. You're checking what, Robert?
Photo.
The photo to make sure it looks like them, right?
Typically not a borrowed ID, it's them. You're looking at the birth date.
Birth date.
You're looking at the expiration date.
Yes.
Quality of the ID. Is it glossy? Is it dull? Is it a fake?
Is it a fake? Is it borrowed? So you're going through your standard routine of why you normally, the functionality of checking an ID. But while I'm going through that process, I always like to do a couple of things. And you kind of have to practice this. But one tip is if you come across their birth date and it is either recent or it's coming up in the next couple of weeks, is always a great opportunity to wish them a happy birthday or a belated happy birthday. It softens things. It makes it more a personal touch. Another thing that I like to do is, and this is a good practice if you work in a city to where you're getting a lot of out-of-state IDs, I always had these little quirks about different states.
Hey, I'm from New York.
So yeah, I would say something like, "What part of New York are you from?" And they would say, and I would come back and say, "Oh, I'm from
Manhattan."
Oh, I'm from upstate.
Really?
Yeah, I'm from Binghamton.
Well, that's freaking cool.
Yeah, I just moved down here. And even though I've never even been to New York, I would know a little bit about the state so I could relate to them on a level. And sometimes I would let it be known that I was just making things up. But it would be all in the guise of creating this conversation, and it would be somewhat entertaining, and I would try to be witty about it. You know, another one would be New Jersey. And the typical thing that people from New Jersey know is, what exit do you live off of the turnpike? And so someone would say, I said, "What exit?" "I'm off the 17." I'm like, "Get out of here. I grew up right off the 18." "No way." And I would go with it for a little bit, and it would create this interaction. And I'm just joking. I'm not from New Jersey.
But when they walked away from you at the door going in your venue, how did you know, not guess, how did you know they felt?
Oh, they felt a little bit like I personalized the experience. They felt better for having that short engagement with me. And even though I was pulling their leg, it was still something that was funny. And it set the tone as me being something more than just a door guy or someone who just checks IDs.
The other side of that for you listening, and think about this. If you've ever heard this, there's a thing that police use all the time. If you've ever been interrogated, we don't want to know about it, but it's truth-telling style. The cop will sit with you for sometimes 30 and 40 minutes just talking about you and your past. Has nothing to do with what you're being interrogated for. And that's what Manny's doing. Oh, where are you from? What you doing? These are things that they should have no reason to lie about. Has nothing to do with their age. Oh, you're off exit 18? No kidding. I grew up right down the road on 17. These are things they should tell the truth about. So now when he asks them, so what are you doing in San Diego? Remember, they're lying. They're underage. Manny knows their truth-telling style. Now he knows, hey, you're not answering the way you should answer. And it's another red flag for him to check for that underage person.
So on the same topic of little tricks, another thing that I would like to do, and this is kind of fun, is if you have a line in your IDing, I would normally scan the line. And a lot of times when people are getting ready to get carded, they hold the ID up. And I would actually get a glimpse of the ID. And oftentimes I could tell what state it was just by the look of the ID. And so I'll tell a little story of when this worked really well one time. I was actually working at a place in San Diego, and this young lady, very attractive, had an ID from New Jersey. And as she walked up, she was about to present the ID without me even seeing it. And I said, "Are you from New Jersey?" And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "I don't know. I get this sense that you're from New Jersey." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, that is amazing. How'd you know I'm from New Jersey?" I'm like, I just get the sense about people. I'm from New Jersey. And so we had this little moment of connection, and I checked her ID, everything checked out. I let her by. But what was interesting about that same experience is the guy that she was with, I checked his ID as well. And he's from Colorado. I'm actually from Colorado. I looked at where he's from, and it said South Park. And so then the name above that was Trey Parker. It happened to be Trey Parker from the writer and the creator of South Park. And it just happened to be that I pulled this little trick with his girlfriend at the time, or the girl that he was with. So
you couldn't get her number?
I couldn't get her number. She was taken, but it's a cool little trick to do, is to look down the line, see if you can see the ID, or find out, listen in a conversation, and use that to your advantage to when you have interactions with them.
I love all those, because I can see where you can turn those points you did to have a wonderful experience with your doorman into security checks for rudeness, sobriety, underage, attitude.
Yeah, so the same reason why you're asking those questions, or the same reason why I'm having these interactions, because you get a read on the person, and that allows you to make a decision about their state, their level of intoxication, if you need to make contact with them later on in the night.
And for you younger guards, or I shouldn't say younger, less experienced, try them. Take a deep breath. You'll see a group of 3 people walking up, guys or girls. Stand your ground at your door, take a deep breath, and try a couple of these things. It's going to feel uncomfortable to you because you haven't done it. But after you do it to these 3, and it's fun, they eat it up and buy into it, move on. And now you'll have an even better chance at the door.
Yeah, and the little responses that I would go to were nothing that I had immediately. It was something that was developed over time. And you learn something about another region or another state. Like if I got an ID from Idaho, my go-to saying would be famous potatoes, because that's what reads on their license plate is famous potatoes. You chuckle about the saying, you have a little bit of a back and forth conversation, and then you go on to the next person. All right, so those are my IDing tricks when you're at the door. You could probably use this too as a bartender if you're carding at the bar. Robert, what's your second one?
Well, I'm moving away from the door and I'm going inside. And on many levels, I teach this, and it's so important. My second tip for you for customer service on the security side is be proactive inside your bar. Proactivity is not sitting against the wall, sitting on a bar stool near the end of the bar, talking to the girls at the end of the bar, talking to the servers, talking them up. Do your job. Be proactive. Walk that floor. Solve problems. Read body language. Look at the couple having a great time. They're engaged. They're leaning forward to each other. Her hands are crossed in front of her on the table. She's smiling. They're leaning in on each other. They're having a good time. Then look at the couple, and no offense to you married couples who've been married for a while, but you're typically not engaging each other like that. You're leaning back. She's checking her phone in her lap. You're looking around at the TVs. Learn proactively how to go approach these two different types of people. While you're looking around and you're identifying different types of guests, proactively think, what can I do with this guest or this group? For example, you're looking around your bar. It's 11:30 at night. You've been working 2 hours already. 11:30, things start getting going. People are getting intoxicated if you're in a 2 a.m. bar or a 3 a.m. bar. Look at the table of 5 to 6 guys. What can you expect is going to happen within the next 30 minutes to an hour with this 5 or 6 group of guys? You see 7 beer bottles. You see 2 pitchers of beer. You see the waitress or server bringing 8 shots. What can you expect? Don't just think about it.
There's 5 guys and 8 shots?
Well, they're going to give one to the server. They're going to buy one for the girl next to him.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to think proactively. Walk over there and say, fellas, what's the party for? Here, let me get these empty glasses out of your way. Find out one guy isn't doing a shot. He's your designated driver. That's the guy you're going to talk to later. Find out it's this guy's birthday. You know he's going to be throwing up in the bathroom by 2 a.m. You would have never known that had you just been sitting on your bar stool watching the crowd until it happened. So my number 2 tip for security and customer service is to be proactive on your floor, from body language, greeting guests, talking to them, visiting tables. I think, what was the phrase? 4 greets to a seat. A gentleman that I was on a panel with in Vegas in August, he's a customer service professional, expert, whatever he is. He used that term, 4 greets to a seat.
What does that mean, Robert?
I love the meaning, just the simplicity of what it says. Each table, each seat should get 4 hellos or 4 greetings, whether it's the server sits him down, the guard walks up and says hi, the manager making his round says hi, another guard walks by. We want them to feel comfortable, happy. Look, I'm being attended to. People are talking to me. I'm being noticed. I'm somebody. Now they got a name of a guard. They got a name of a manager. They feel special. All of those things will take away the chance of them doing something stupid later in the night. They still may because of intoxication, but you know who they are. Because you were proactive, maybe you can stop it before it gets worse. So that's my number 2 tip, is being proactive on the floor.
You left out your favorite example of proactive.
Tell me.
The guy that walks in, he's looking around, he's obviously lost, he's looking for something.
Some of you guys, and if you've been in my class, I act this out because I hate seeing it. I hate the guard that sits there 10 feet away from the door. You see 3 guys at the door showing their ID. The first guy pops through the door so fast, he's not looking for anything special in your eyes, but his eyes are moving around the bar. They're looking left, they're looking right. He's looking for signs. He's looking for something. And what do? You just sit there. You watch him and you think to yourself, look at that douchebag. What's he doing? Look at that idiot. This idiot. Instead of walking up and saying, you look lost. Now, mind you, his 2 friends are still at the door getting their ID checked. Normally, he'd wait at the door for them. Something is pushing him to hurry up. Guy's got a weak bladder. He just drank a 40 in the car. Now he's at your door. He had to wait 10 minutes. He's got to pee. You know that. You've seen that guy come into your bar. Walk up and say, what can I do for you? You're looking for the ATM, the bathroom, hot chicks. Bathroom? Right down there. Big sign. Big red sign. Says bathroom, men's.
So it just goes back to being able to read the body language of somebody. They don't even have to say anything. You can tell what they need. You can anticipate it. Why not help them out?
But too often, a bouncer, in-house guard, security.
Because they're tough.
That's not my fucking job. No. Oh, yeah, it is. It's your job to go greet these people and solve this problem. This may save you so much later. So greeting, being proactive on the floor, number 2 for me.
All right. So mine is a little bit related to yours.
You're just copying me, man. This sucks.
No, you know what? I think you looked at my list. This one I call the alpha male. And basically what it is you gave the example of the 5 guys that are going to be out for the night. They're going to tie one on. You sense it, you see it coming, there's going to be a problem. what I like to do when I see these groups is I always establish contact. And generally what you can do is you can identify the leader of the group. There's normally one guy or one or two guys that I call them the alpha. They're in control of the group. They're the ones that say, okay, we're done here. We're going to go there. All right, guys, we're going to do a shot next. We're going to do this. They're leading the charge. And they normally are, for whatever reason, they're normally the ones that you want to establish contact with. And what I'll do is I'll see this group of guys, and it holds true for women as well. But what you want to do is you want to establish contact and a simple introduction. Walk up to the group, hey guys, how we doing tonight? And you find that alpha, maybe he's off to the side, and you introduce, hey, listen, my name is Manny. I know you guys are out to have a good time tonight. If you need anything, let me know. You've established a contact. Now you have a contact person if something is to come up. If you need to put the brakes on the party, if you need to feather the throttle, so to speak, because these groups can get out of hand and it could get really uncomfortable quickly.
And one thing, I'm primarily basing most of my in-bar working experience. I've worked at several as a consultant around the country, but most of my experience has been in San Diego, and I know that's true for you. If you know your crowds and you know your demographic and you know what people do and don't do in your area, whether you're in a small town in Cheyenne, Wyoming, if you're in a large town in Miami, Florida, finding that alpha male and knowing what they're more likely to do or not do when there's an incident, their buddy gets in a fight, and they're the ones that can take charge and control their friends. If you know that for your region, that's important, and that's good information in your head when you're just saying hi.
And another point is when you establish that contact is that you want to introduce yourself as a friend to the group. You're not the enemy. You're not the bad guy. You're on their side. So when you have a request of them or need them to do something or need them to say one of the guys in the group is out of hand, he has to go, the group is going to be more cooperative knowing that you're the nice guy. I'm the friendly guy.
Manny, how many times you've been working the door or working inside of your bar, whatever bar it was, and someone came to the door, a guard came to find you and says, hey, John's asking for you at the door. Now, you don't know John, but John gets to be at the door with two of his friends a week after you made this contact, and John can say, hey, is Manny in? Yeah, he's a manager. I met him last week. I just wanted to say hi. What John wants is a handshake from you.
Come right in.
That's right. He wants a VIP entry because he is the alpha male, but right now he's not. But once he knows you, he's even more of an alpha male.
Yeah, and that's part of, we could do a whole topic on the psychology of customer service, but part of the need that we feel for our guests is significance, and that's making someone feel good about themselves, make them look good in front of their friends. That's giving them significance, and that's why we're here. This is what we do.
Right.
All right. So what's your number 3?
Number 3, and I adapted a little bit after last week and thinking about it, but it involves helping servers. I think everyone in the industry, whether you're a doorman, whether you're a bartender, whether you're a manager, you're the busser, you should be doing things on the floor. You don't have to be vocal about it, but you should be doing things on the floor to help the guest. For example, you walk by a table, you're a bouncer. You're walking by the table, you see a guest of 3, 2 of them have empty water glasses. There's nothing wrong with going to tell the server, hey, table number 21 needs water. But it's even better if you as the guard walk over, get a pitcher, walk over to their table and fill their water glasses.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
That's not my job.
I know it, but it is because, once
man,
again,
I'm a bouncer.
Just like you making contact with the alpha male, you're making contact in a nice, quiet...
I ain't getting tipped out.
Nope, you're not. But when there's problems later, maybe you've made enough contact with giving them water, bringing them an extra chair, seeing that they're eating spaghetti with garlic bread. It's 5 guys. The garlic bread is wolfed down in a second. You know they want more, because don't you want more garlic bread? Who doesn't want more garlic bread? But planning ahead for when they start downing the beer, the pitchers of beer, garlic bread is a wonderful beer soaker in their stomach. Go in the kitchen, get them a big slice of garlic bread and bring it out. What's it cost? Zip. And you're the good guy, but you're being proactive like a server in doing things that these guys love or these girls love, and it's not part of your job. But I think the most important thing about thinking like a server, whether it's water or clearing a table of dirty dishes or linen, is picking up weapons of opportunity, glassware. So while you're walking the floor, you're going from the front door, you're going to the bathroom, you were just relieved at the door, another guard number 2 is watching the door while you're going to the bathroom. Pick up 3 glasses on your way. Make a point of going to the table. How you doing, sir? You all done with this glass? You need a server? Yeah, let me get that from you. No, I'll take this. Don't worry about it. I'll grab your server. You just made another positive contact. Once again, 4 greets to a seat. You took their glassware. 40 minutes later, there's a fight on the dance floor. Guards are walking a guy out. And sure enough, I'm sure some of the listeners have seen this, that one small jerk guy that you're walking out that couldn't, punch his way out of a paper sack, you give him the space, though, and he takes a wild swing with a glass in his hand, throwing it across the room or throwing it at one of your partners because it's an empty glass on a rail or on a table. Had you picked it up, acting like a server, no weapon of opportunity, no chance for him to hurt anyone, and he's gone out the club.
So the idea of actually picking up glassware, plateware, silverware even, we know it's not within your job description for most bouncers, but it really is because you're eliminating a potential problem.
And not only are you eliminating that problem, but it really goes to 1 and 2 that I put out and 1 and 2 that you put out also. Even if you don't say anything, I mean, ask a bartender in your bar, go there tonight, go there tomorrow, go there next weekend, and ask a bartender, hey, when you're working and pouring drinks behind the well, do you hear just about everything that these customers say to each other? Bad pickup lines, horror stories of dates, fights. You tell me, Manny, don't you hear just about everything your customers talk about? Because you're tuned out to them. They don't think of you as someone listening.
No, you're a fixture. You might as well be a tap handle. Well, depends, but you could be a tap handle, and you hear a lot of interesting things.
And that's right. And that's why visiting a table to clear out, maybe it's a couple, and you pick up the empty plates and the linen, and you ask them if they need anything else, but you're listening because the table next to you, these guys are saying, F those guys. No, F them. Let's do this. Had you not been at that table doing a server's job, helping, you wouldn't have heard that. And I think that's another vital point.
Good point, Robert. I'm going to just piggyback on one thing that you said. Another thing is if you're working in the scope of a server or you're doing these things that are a little bit outside your job description, I'm going to guarantee you that the rest of the team is going to look at you differently because you're going above and beyond what the normal guy, what the average guy does, and you're going to make yourself a much more valuable asset, not only in the eyes of the ownership, but the manager and your teammates, and that goes a long way when it comes time. If you're a door guy that's getting tipped out, you know what? Jim hustled his ass off tonight. He was picking up my plateware, my glassware. He was right there. And of course, you got to do it delicately because you don't want to get in the way of the actual operation. But if you're doing those things, they're going to look at you totally different.
The other point I'll add to that, to piggyback off my point,
Holy
is
smokes.
If you got 12 guards and one is an outstanding guard doing this type of thing on their own, they're not asked to, I guarantee you'll get 3 more that start doing it too because they see the value of doing it. Someone will say, hey, Bouncer Manny, why are you picking up glassware, man? That's not our job. And Bouncer Manny comes back and says, well, yeah, because I don't want to get hit with this glass and I don't want you to get hit. Oh, no kidding. Yeah, that happened to me once. Yeah, okay. And all of a sudden, Bouncer Robert is now picking up beer bottles, glassware, plates, because he realizes the importance of doing it, but he got it from you.
And the next thing, if it really goes well, is if it's contagious and everybody's doing it and everybody's lending that helping hand and going just a little bit extra, it's much more of an easy process because everybody's pitching in. It's many hands make light of tasks.
And imagine this one, and I can think of a club that you would know if I said the name of it, and I won't throw them out here, but typically at 1:30 in the morning in this downtown San Diego bar, they will take 2 or 3 of their guards, and they will designate them instead of now the busiest time of the night, clearing the drunks, clearing your doorway, but doing things to get your night over and get people out safely. They've got 2 or 3 guards wandering the bar floor picking up glassware, and they'll look like waiters with stacks of glasses because no one's picked up one single glass all night, and they're stacked everywhere. Rails, floors, chairs, bathrooms, outside, inside. And instead of just doing it through the night, they've got 3 designated guards just to go pick up glassware, and it's absolutely drives me crazy when they do that.
And managers, the good thing for you to teach these sorts of things is you'll save a ton on glassware, because it could be a big expense, some big monthly expense with all the broken glassware. All right, so my third tip, Robert, is going to be, and this is a simple one, and this is one that I teach not only doormen, but servers, bartenders, pretty much everybody within the walls of an establishment. And this is easy. Ask questions. What I mean by that is a lot of people are intimidated to interact with a guest. It doesn't feel natural for some people. And the easiest way to get over that is just to ask a question. And one of my favorite questions to open up a line of like a conversation or get to know somebody or introduce myself is where are you from? And this works really well if you're in a larger city where you have people coming in as tourists or travelers, but it really opens up the door to learn something about the person. Another example of a question would be, Robert, you had the example of walking up to tables to pick up glassware. And a lot of times for even servers, seasoned servers, this is an awkward moment because they feel like they're interrupting. And one of the things you can do to break that awkwardness is to ask a question. So an example would be, hey folks, how you doing tonight? Easy. One question. Second question, what's the occasion tonight? Oh, it's Mary's birthday. Oh, happy birthday, Mary. And you begin this.
How'd you get there, Manny? What did you start by doing?
Asking questions.
That's right. That was it. How you doing?
How you doing? So it's a really easy approach. It seems really simple, but if you're able to have a 4 or 5 questions that you can ask on a regular basis, you'll be really surprised of the interactions you can have with guests. And again, as a door guy, you're not just the big door guy who is the policeman of the establishment. You're now Big Mike, the friendly guy, and you'll get hugs, when people come to the door because they know you now, or a fist bump because you're the cool bouncer.
Absolutely right. I love that one too.
So just real simple, ask questions. And another good reason for doing it is that you'll be really surprised at the people that you meet. I mean, part of this, the great thing about the hospitality business is meeting some incredible people, and you just never know who you're going to meet once you start asking questions. You know what, Robert, you got your 4 and 5 to go. I got my 4 and 5 to go. I think maybe we should take a little bit of a break right now. When we come back, we'll finish up. So just stay tuned. If you like our show, visit nightclubsecurity.com for more information and access to free resources. Remember, that's www.nightclubsecurity.com. All right. Welcome back. So, Robert, we're still continuing on the topic of tips for security customer service. You are actually up next with your number 4.
Number 4 or 5. And my number 4, as we piggybacked off each other, mine's going to piggyback off your number 2, where you talked about finding the alpha male. I want guards to look at the group and find who the non-drinker is. And I mentioned it in my 3 with customer service and getting tables and clearing them. But find out who the designated driver is, or who the non-drinker is, or the one who's probably having 1 Coors Light while everyone else is slamming shots of whiskey or Jaeger. And you notice that they're milking that Coors Light for 45 minutes. Well, you can make a safe bet that they're not already drunk.
That's boring, Tom.
Well, and hey, by the way, what's your favorite beer?
Coors Light.
All right, then. And you notice they've been milking that beer for 45 minutes. Everyone's had 2 beers and a shot already. Even if they don't have a designated driver, that's going to probably be the guy that punches out early. He's not going to want to get drunk. He's got to get up early. He just got off a long bender last night. But he may be your person to talk to, just to say hi, go up and say, hey, you're not pounding drinks like the buddies. No, it's kind of my night to stay fresh and babysit. There's your man. That's your Huckleberry. Get to know him. If you got cards, exchange cards. Talk to him about what they're doing, how come he might have to babysit. You'll find out. Well, Joe over there just broke up with his girlfriend. Mike's in from Arizona. So-and-so, Alex is just a loser for general purposes. And, just by talking, finding out looking for the designated driver or the non-drinker or the slow drinker, you may have an ally when it's time for drunk Alex to go home, and you walk over to your new friend Joe Hey, Joe. He goes, yeah, I know. That's what he does. I'll deal with him. Let me deal with you. Is it okay? Yeah, I'll give you a few minutes. You've notified your friends, your other security guards, but because you identified either the non-drinker or the designated driver, they don't want to be there anyway. They want to leave. They'll gather up Alex. The other 3 drunks will follow, and you can get him out of there without even doing anything because you, through customer service techniques and being observant and proactive, you identified the non-drinker or the designated driver and let them do your job for you.
I would say 80% of the time, that's how I deal with an ejection, is I let the friend do it. Because it's much softer. It's not, they don't feel violated. They don't feel wronged. And you're able to get their friend or their group to do your dirty work for you. And the great thing about the alpha male technique or the designated driver or the guy that maintains, establishing contact with those guys, the thing with that technique is you got to be a little patient because sometimes it takes them a few minutes to rally the troops, to close out tabs, to get the guy directed in the right direction. We got to go.
What's my phrase that I use? When there's no reason to hurry, don't hurry.
Don't hurry. Yeah.
So if you've made contact, you can rush over there. You can get your 2 guards, your bartender, your bar back, and your manager and grab a guy and throw him out the door. You've just failed. Now you've hurt him. His friends jump on your back. You got a chokehold. You're fighting them off. The police are coming. There's a lawsuit. You failed. Take your time. Ask the friend. The friend walks over and says, hey, bud, we got to go. Oh, I'm fine. They're hugging. They're talking. You can see making eye contact with your friend. He's getting the guy out. They tab out. They gather up their cameras. They take a couple of... Who cares if it takes them 5 minutes? They're not fighting. You're not interacting. They're leaving.
Yeah, so and the good way to approach it too is let the team know what you have planned. All right, so you got your door guys. Keep an eye on these guys. I'm going to let their friend Tom give them a minute to close out their tabs and get out of here. So you have eyes on the situation in case something does go down. But for the most part, if you're patient, and sometimes it requires a little bit of a encouragement. Hey Tom, you got to get your buddy out here, and that takes maybe 1 or 2 contacts, but oftentimes it works like a charm. You get the guy out of there, no problems, no issues. He doesn't know, he's not any the wiser that you just kicked him out basically or cut him off.
And managers or senior guards have done this for a while. If you know this already, great. Managers, if you've done this, great. Just like Manny said, that's one of the ways, probably the most common way he did it. Relax. Let your guard learn that. Tell him, hey, I want you to go make contact with him. This is what we're going to do. And let the guard, the new guard, the guard that's never done it, that wants to jump in and just throw someone out, let them learn this technique too. So this can be, almost like passed down from guard to guard, manager to guard. Don't be worried about getting it done in a minute. Take your time, because your end result is to do what? Get them out safely. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is, and this one, I love it. It's probably the one technique that I have used in the last 13 years of managing that it works like a charm. And it's to carry a notebook in your back pocket. And what you do is you take, those little, what am I looking for? Steno pad.
A little spiral ring notebook.
Yeah, spiral notebook.
Pocket-sized notebook.
You can get 5 for probably $1, 3 for $1, something like that. They're really inexpensive. On one side, I'll take a Sharpie, I'll write names, and I'll flip it over on the back side, I'll write notes. Now, the customer service tip that comes into this one is the name side. And if you work in a bar where you get a lot of regular customers, and you see these people week in, week out, I think for a lot of you listening, you could probably say that you can visually recognize somebody, but you don't know their name. And I tell you what, once you learn somebody's name, write it down, write a little description of what that person looks like. And sometimes you have to be creative to really tie in the name to that individual and get as creative as you want, because the goofier it is, the crazier it is, the word association, the easier it's going to be to remember. So, for instance, if I met Robert for the first time and I found out he was a cop, I would probably call him Bob the cop.
Which you do.
Which I do. And I would imagine him with a Keystone hat and a billy club swinging it. And that's how I would remember Bob the cop.
And it's real funny that you say that, because when you talk to your friends on the phone that I am not friends with, I have maybe met them one time, you will say, yeah, I'm with Bob the cop. and now they'll know immediately
Yeah.
who you were with.
Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, I'm here with Bob. Bob. Yeah, you remember Bob the cop? Oh yeah, I know Bob the cop. So writing names down, keeping a little log of your regulars, put a little brief description. Before you know it, you're going to have a long list of names. And not always are you going to be able to remember somebody right off the bat. Now, you can fake it, act like you know them because you do know them. But when they're not looking, you take that little notepad, open it up, find their name, and then start using that name. And the more you use it, the easier this is going to get. But try to work on it one name a night, maybe 2 names a night if you're really good, 3 if you're a superstar. But as you remember your guests' names, again, part of this business, part of hospitality entertainment is making people feel special. And I'll tell you what, if you know their name, man, that's gold. And I would tell my bartenders, my servers, every time you remember somebody's name, it's like $1 in your pocket. Just think of it as $1 in your pocket. And every time you say their name, it's another $1 in your pocket. Because chances are, as those people become more significant, feel more special, it's money in your pocket.
For the guards, again, out there that are young and haven't even thought about doing this and don't know and they're afraid to do it, you're going to have to get over that fear. I am terrible at names, and I've tried, and Manny's seen me at the training sessions where we have 15, 20 people. And by gosh, I'll try to remember a couple of names. By the end of the day, I'm having to say, I'll look at Manny, and he'll go, Ashley, Martin, Josh, Christian, because I've lost it. I don't get it. I mean, I don't remember them, and that's terrible on my part. And I have to call people, hey, buddy, how you doing, pal? Good to see you. And Manny will know immediately, oh, that guy forgot their name.
Don't you use cowboy every once in a while?
Hey, cowboy, what's going on?
But the whole aspect of remembering names, and you'll be really surprised. You just treat it one name at a time. And I'll go even one further. This is a free tip. Once you learn their names, shake hands. And I've used this example numerous times. I want you to think about how many bars you've been to, how many times you've sat at the bar, and how many times a bartender has actually reached across the bar and shook your hand. I think maybe in San Diego in 13 years, it's happened to me maybe 5-6 times because it never happens. But the impression that you make upon the person once you do that technique of shaking their hand, saying their name, that's gold.
And again, it goes back to our earlier point about the guest wanting to feel like they're important. So, okay, you remember their name, and they're, oh, man. And they turn to their friend, dude, what is his name? Or they'll go to the bartender, hey, Mike, what's the bouncer's name? Oh, Manny, that's right. Okay, thanks. Because they feel bad that they don't remember you. They don't need to know that they're insignificant to you, that you had to write their name down on a pad to remember it, but they feel bad. But as soon as you know them, you're dropping their name, you're talking to them about their job because you looked at your notepad, they are a VIP in their mind to you. And they'll be back time and time again, and occasionally they'll do you a favor on the security side. Hey, Josh, look, I know you come here all the time, bro. It's good to see you. It's always good to see you, but your partners need to tone it down a little bit. And Josh is like, oh, bro, I got you. I got this.
Because he'll be embarrassed.
He not only is embarrassed, he's a VIP. You know him.
He wants to be welcome next time he
That's
comes
right.
back. Yeah.
He's going to handle it for you.
So on the names, if you're doing it and if your fellow bouncers and managers and the rest of the staff is doing it, this is an awesome technique because now if you don't remember a name or now if you hadn't written a name, you can say, hey, Jim, who's that guy over there in the green shirt? And he'll say, oh, that's Larry. Larry works over at, and he'll have a little bit of background on him. So next time you talk to him, you'll have some sort of knowledge. It's a great technique. And then on the opposite side, once you write the names, just another tip, use the other side to write notes throughout the night. The light bulb in the bathroom needs to be changed. There's, whatever you need to write, just the little hand notes for the night. If you need to debrief your team or your manager, you have a place to write notes throughout the night.
I love the note writing. I love that a lot because on my end, if some incident happens, small or large, you have immediate capability to write down what happened. Before the police get there, you're already making your report on your little notepad. You can put it on paper and computer later, but you're making notes, so they are fresh in your mind. And if you ever get in front of a jury, you can go back and say, yeah, you know what? a year ago, I listened to this podcast, 5 for 5, a nightclub security podcast, and they talked about this. That's when I started carrying a pad, because they're going to want to know how you were the smart bouncer to take notes on the suspect that came in and did this, this, and this. Your report will be better, and it all came from doing Manny's number 4 tip.
All right, what's your number 5, Robert?
My number 5 is fairly easy, but it's also pretty tough. You have to open your mind a little bit and really decide to understand who your demographic is. Now, we're talking customer service as they relate to security. What I want guards to do is, if you work at a country bar, know that obviously the majority of your people coming in there are going to enjoy country music. Look around at your bar. Okay, you can throw that one and put it in the bank. People that come there typically like country music. But now look at your guests. Is it an older crowd on Tuesday? Is it a Thursday night half-price Jaeger bomb crowd? Is it Friday from 7 to midnight $1.50 PBR night crowd? Know who the demographic is and work to that demographic. For example, if you know you're going to get a lot of underage people, maybe you staff a little extra. Maybe you work the door a little bit harder, because they're going to have less money, college students, military guys. They're going to drink more before they come to your place where it's $3 shots. They'll drink them at home when it's cheaper. They'll be drunk before they get there. If it's an older crowd, you'll shake a little bit more hands. You'll be a little bit more elderly respectful. You'll comment on a couple of different things, maybe make grown-up person conversation. If it's ladies' night, if it's spouse night, whatever night you're doing, know your demographic. One of the things that we went over today is I had the class today, and they fell in perfectly to do this. I had them tell me about violent incidents in your bar. Who's causing them? Oh, well, drunks. Okay, let's assume anyone causing a fight in your bar is a drunk, or at least intoxicated to some level. Yes, listeners, I know. Occasionally a sober person will cause a fight, but the majority of your events were caused by someone who's intoxicated. To wrap it up, these people are males, the people that cause most of the problems in your bar. Think about it. Again, don't read into this, and I don't mean every problem in your bar is always caused by these people, but 9 out of 10 of them are. Typically. Males, ages 21. If you're all-age venue, it's 18 to 26. 21 to 26 years old. College age, first-time military guys, first-time out there on their own guys. It's guys age 21 to 26, and they're intoxicated. I threw in one more to my class, and I asked, what time do these events happen? Do they happen at 9 p.m., or is it immediately the class speaks up on their own and they say, no, around midnight or after? Exactly. So if your problems are, and thinking of this number 5 tip, your demographic, if your crowd is predominantly male, predominantly ages 21 to 26, and it's late at night, your guard better be up. Know what to expect. Don't be surprised when the fight breaks out between 6 different guys on the dance floor. But if you're proactively looking for those people, you're solving the problem early, you don't have that problem. And you got it from looking for the demographic. And it's the same thing whether you're at a gentleman's club. If you're, in fact, today one of the managers from Exposed, her name again, see, we just did this. Ashley said that she really has a cush job as a manager during the day because predominantly she knows her demographic. Now, she's a new manager, but she knows her demographic already. During the day, it's males between the age of 35 and 55, working professionals, dress nice, come in for one drink, lunchtime, immediately after work, and they're going home. They spend a little bit of money, and they're gone. She doesn't have fights and problems because these guys are there to live that little dream fantasy. She's a smart manager. That's what a guard working in downtown Wisconsin or downtown New York needs to understand about who's coming in their bar, their demographic. Know it and use it. That's my number 5. I think that's one of my most important ones, is understanding who you're serving.
And also regarding the idea of knowing your demographic, what's also important about that is that if you do understand the type of people that are coming to your establishment at what times, you can often relate to them better, and just, the topics of conversation, the interactions, to be able to relate to somebody, even though they're not like you, if they're older, younger, a different race, is really important because, it breaks down the barriers and offers that connection. So if you ever really notice a bartender that's a really good bartender, you'll see that person be able to relate to all types of people.
And I love doing that. I love seeing that, rather, where I'll look at a bartender. I'll go there at night, maybe on a slow night when they have regulars, and I'll look at the cross-section of people at a good bar, a well-run bar, and I'll look at the bartender, and he's talking football. He's talking current events in the news. He's talking politics. He's talking Middle East. He's mentioning a joke. He's talking about somebody's child. How do you do that? Because he works for tips. But he knows that by making that customer feel special, by knowing the demographic of who they're serving, they're helping the overall venue.
Boom, boom. All right, so my last one, this is really easy. Probably the simplest thing you can do, but probably one of the most powerful things you can do. Smile. That's it. While you work, try smiling. I think a lot of guards like to put up a tough persona. You think it's part of your job, but you know what? It doesn't hurt every once in a while. When you make eye contact with somebody, just give them that gleaming, pearly white smile. It puts people at ease. They're there to have a good time. They know that you're there to keep them safe, and a smile just goes a long way. So while you're working, remind yourself to smile. If you have teammates that are in a bad mood, remind them, hey, man, put on your game face and see some smiles. It goes a long way.
I totally agree with you. And I do, from thinking of my number one when you said smile, how simple that is, to number two, to number three, number four, and my number five. It goes along with what I teach, and kind of like how Manny's been closing out our podcast for the last several weeks. Be nice. And I think smiling is something that guards forget about. And I've heard so many of this same comment from guards around the country. I don't want to appear weak. Well, smiling doesn't make you weak. You know what you can do. You got a team of 2 or even by yourself or 5 people. Smiling makes you approachable. This job isn't about hammering people. It's about going home safely and not getting sued or hurt. And smiling can absolutely do both of those to help you get home safely, have people see you as friendly and engaging. And I think it's a real good point to get your staff to start doing.
Which is, it really does, like we said at the top of the show, the vibe that the crowd's going to have, they feed off of the staff. If you're setting the right vibe, if you have the good sense of customer service, you're making people feel special, you know our names, you're shaking hands, you're the host of the party, it really will mitigate the problems. And that's really our main objective of what we do and why we have these podcasts, is because we want people to have fun, safe environments, the least amount of problems possible, the safest environments, and it really does all start with customer service. So, Robert, do you have anything to add before we take our last break?
Nope, I'm good to go.
All right, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, we'll just wrap up the show, close things out, make some announcements. Stick with us. We'll be right back. If you like our show, visit nightclubsecurity.com for more information and access to free resources. Remember, that's www.nightclubsecurity.com. All right. Welcome back. We're going to just wrap up the show. We have some announcements to make. There's a couple in-person trainings we're doing coming up in the month of October. Robert, what are our dates?
Going to be in Dallas doing some research from about the 9th of October to the 13th, checking out the scene. Go down there and see some friends and family, visit some venues. 14th and 15th of October, be in Washington, D.C. for the D.C. host training, supported and sponsored by the Restaurant Association of Metro D.C. and D.C. Nightlife Association. Wednesday, take off to St. Louis, be in St. Louis on the 16th, 17th, and 18th. Not necessarily a training, but a leadership conference, a leadership summit put on by the Responsible Hospitality Institute surrounding nightlife security. And then fly off to Tampa on the 19th and 20th to do a national host program there in partnership with Pike Barber and the Hospitality Insurance Agency. So we've got a busy week.
So for the classes in D.C., there's still quite a bit of room as far as enrollment. So if you want to get on that, we'll have links on our website as well as our podcast show notes. But the training in Tampa is filling up quickly. So if you want to get in on that, if you're in the Tampa area and you want to take part in the National Host Program, make sure you get in quickly because that will soon be closed.
It's probably there now. We just haven't heard from our final contact there. Even though we're this far out, we've probably got over our 35 to 40 people. But please feel free to contact us and try to get in and we can get you in.
All right. Anything else, Robert?
No.
Okay, so that's it for our dates as far as training. If you have any questions, comments, please let us know at questions@nightclubsecurity.com. We'd love for you to like us on Facebook. You can find us under Bouncer Training or Bouncer Trainer. Also, find us on Twitter. Again, links will be on our show notes for that. If there's anything that we can do for you in regards to nightclub security, we offer consulting, in-person training, online training, expert witness. You can find all that information on our website, nightclubsecurity.com. Anything else, Robert?
Nope, that's it.
All right. I'm Manny Marquez.
I'm Robert Smith.
And be nice.